All right. Let's get going. 7:30. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PL 1975, Chapter 231, adequate notice of this regular meeting of the Planning Board of the Township of Franklin has been provided. If everyone could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Councilman Larson. Carl Hauk.
Here.
Mahir Rafiq. Here. Theodore Chase.
Here.
Jennifer Ragnow asked to be excused. Mustafa Manzarek.
Here.
Charles Brown.
Here.
Robert Thomas.
Here.
Amy Shaban. And Chairman Orsini.
Here. First item of business, minutes from the regular meeting of June 1st, 2022. Move to approve.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Jen.
I have some corrections to make. I brought them in this pile. Yeah, well, I mean, they're all minor, but on the first page and again on the third, what they have, and I'm sure it's just our recording secretary having trouble hearing, is Ms. Kikos Anastasakos. I had to check that with a resident of Canal Walk. And on the third page, the paragraph that begins Ms. Anastasakos, Mr. Sakos in the copy, I think it should say schools such as Franklin Township High School and Elizabeth Avenue School. Otherwise,
Ted, on the third page is public comments. Is that what you're talking about?
yeah.
Under public comments, what are you saying, where it says South Bound Brook resident?
No, this is under Ms., as it is in what you have, Mr. Staskos. The last line of that, where it ends Elizabeth Avenue School, I would think they probably meant Franklin Township High School.
I'm not seeing what you're talking about. On page 3 of the minutes for,
July 13th?
No.
no, Ted,
June
these are
1st.
June 6th.
Oh,
1st.
okay. I'll hold off then.
Okay. You have a second?
You sent these. I thought we were voting on them.
The only thing I have on the agenda is for June 1st.
Okay.
All right, so we have a motion.
You
I'll
can do that,
second.
that's fine. I'm sorry, who's second?
I'll second.
Mike? Okay. Councilman Ambarson?
Yes.
Carl Hauk?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Mustafa Manzarek? Yes. I don't think you're...
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
And Chairman Orsini?
Yes. Resolution for approval, Elizabeth Realty Partners, LLC. Move to approve. I will second.
Councilman Ambarson?
Yes.
Carl Hauk?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes.
Oh, wait, I don't think you can ask to be second because you have a no vote on that one. Is that okay? You weren't here
Was
for
I-
the...
Yeah, so I can't second.
Charles, you're going to second for us? Frank, do I have to call them all over again? Okay. Councilman Ambarson?
Yes.
Carl Hauk?
Yes.
Mahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
Yes.
Robert Thomas?
Yes. Okay. So we have two hearings tonight, one for 200 Cottontail, the other one for 31 Schoolhouse Road. If you want to comment on those two applications, please wait until they're heard, and there'll be a public portion to make comments specifically about those applications. The The current public comment period is for any other general planning comments that the public would like to make. So with that, I will make a motion to open to the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is open to the public for general planning comment. Seeing no one coming forward, I make a motion to close the public portion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so our
Just
first,
let the record show that Sammy Shaban just came in.
first hearing of the night, B9 Cottontail Owner LLC, PLN 22-00008. All right, Peter, you know how this goes, right?
This is the first time I've done this, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Peter Lanford appearing on behalf of the applicant. This is an application for site plan approval for the construction of a warehouse, actually two warehouse buildings totaling about 235,000 square feet at 200 Cottontail. This application involves the demolition of 4 existing buildings that are there and have been there for a while and replaced by the warehouse. There are 2 variances that we are seeking, one of which the board is eminently familiar with, which is the depth of the loading berth, where we're seeking 130 feet, where the ordinance requires 147 feet. The second variance is an impervious coverage variance, and actually, although it is a variance, there is a diminution of impervious coverage on this site. The site is currently covered with 71.3% impervious coverage, and we will be reducing that to 70.6%. I do have 3 witnesses this evening. I have the site engineer who will present the bulk of the testimony concerning the site development. I also have our architect, and I also have our traffic consultant to present some brief testimony. Having said that, I would like to have Mr. Kavinsky sworn in.
Do you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do. Thank you.
State your full name for the record.
Sure, Kyle Kavinsky, Kavinski.
And Mr. Kavinsky, by whom are you employed?
Dynamic Engineering.
In what capacity?
I'm a principal of Dynamic Engineering.
Okay, and are you a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey?
I am.
Can you briefly give the board the benefit of your educational and professional background?
Sure. I have over 10 years of experience. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of New Jersey. I have a bachelor's degree in engineering technology from the University of Delaware, and I've been accepted from numerous boards, including this board, throughout the state.
He's accepted, Peter.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Mr. Kavinsky, the site plan that the board will be looking at this evening was prepared under your direction, correct?
That's correct.
All right, and can you, first of all, indicate to the board the location of the subject property and describe the existing conditions on the property?
So go ahead and start with my first exhibit, which is an aerial map exhibit prepared by our office, dated today's date. It's a color aerial of the subject site and surrounding properties. Should we mark that?
Before we do that, that exhibit was not part of the plan set, correct?
That's correct.
So can we have that marked as A1?
Sorry. Will you submit a copy of your
Absolutely.
presentation?
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I don't know if we just want to mark the whole thing as A1, or do you want to do it individually, Peter?
I think the rest of the exhibits that we're going to rely on are part of the plan sets.
Okay,
So they
so let's
don't,
mark this A1.
we'll mark that A1 and we'll get you a paper copy for the file.
Okay. So again, we have A1, which is an aerial map exhibit, just for orientation purposes. North is to the top of the page, east is to the right side, south is to the bottom, and west is to the left side of the page. The site's located at block 517.06, lot 15.10. It's an acreage of 14.48 acres, and it fronts on Cottontail Lane, and it's located in the BI Business Industrial Zone. As stated, it's currently developed as a 4 interconnecting office buildings with a total of 193,000 square feet, with a large parking lot area that surrounds both the north, east, and south sides of the building, with an existing pervious coverage of 71.3%. There is an existing detention system also located along the western property line, as well as 2 existing driveways that connect to Cottontail Lane.
And can you indicate to the board what the surrounding land uses are to the subject property?
No problem. Again, the subject site is surrounded by the BI Business Industrial Zone, and to the north we have warehouse and offices in use. To the east we have office and warehouse with a residential use. To the south we have a warehouse and office use, and to the west we have Cottontail Lane with warehouses beyond.
Okay. And the current site is accessed by 2 driveways?
That's correct.
And they're both on Cottontail Lane, one on each end of the site generally?
That's correct.
All right, and can you now refer to the plans that we submitted and indicate to the board what we are doing to the subject property?
No problem. Again, let me go to our next exhibit, which is an overall site plan rendering. This is our overall site plan that's within our site plan set, with the landscaping overlaid and then colored for presentation purposes. So I'd want this A2, I would assume. Again, we can provide that.
Thank you.
No problem. Again, orientation, north is to the top of the page, east to the right, south is to the bottom, and west is to the left side. The proposed project will remove all existing uses on site and propose 2 warehouse buildings, which are permitted uses within the BI zone. Building A, which is the northern building, is 116,530 square feet. It has 30 dock positions and 2 drive-in doors. Building B, which is to the south, is 119,000 square feet, 119,325 square feet with 31 dock positions and 2 drive-in doors. The proposed building and site plan were designed to comply with the use setback and parking requirements in the BI zone. Parking for the site, we've included 141 parking spaces with 60 ADA compliant spaces. In addition, we have 4 EV charging spaces that are included within that, and again, one will be designed to meet ADA compliance. We will also be adding signage in the parking areas to designate drop-off and pickup spots for ride-sharing services.
Now, access to the site will be through the same 2 existing driveways?
Correct. We will be modifying the driveway slightly to allow for wider radiuses for trucks to enter and exit the site safely. And we will also be providing a truck court right there in the center of the site where the trucks can circulate. We will be widening that truck court to 200 feet total between the 2 buildings to allow for better access in and out of the loading dock areas.
And can you generally describe how circulation will take place on the site, both for tractor trailers that will be accessing the truck court and also for employee vehicles?
Absolutely. So tractor trailers will enter the site via Cottontail Lane, the incoming driveway, go into the loading dock area, circulate and dock, and then go out the other driveway back to Cottontail Lane. Bond Street parking and passengers' vehicles will not access the truck loading area as the parking lot is on the opposite side of the loading docks. So they can circulate to the parking spots, access those, and then return the driveway which they came.
Are the driveways intended to be one-way driveways or two-way driveways?
They are 2-way driveways.
Okay. And the car parking would be on either side of the buildings?
That's correct.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Now, can you indicate to the board what kind of lighting we're proposing?
Certainly. We have LED lighting, we have downward facing, full cutoff, low profile, energy efficient LED lighting for both freestanding pole lights as well as building mounted. They're 5 feet tall, and they provide uniform lighting throughout the parking lot as well as illumination of the driveways for safety purposes.
Okay. And can you indicate to the board how refuse is being handled on this site?
Absolutely. There's a trash compactor and a masonry enclosure for each building located in the truck court area, and that'll be picked up by a private hauler as needed.
Okay. Now, with respect to stormwater management, there is an existing stormwater management system on the site,
That's correct.
and that system will be modified?
That will be maintained. We will be proposing a brand-new conveyance system to that existing system. It'll be maintained, and we will be reducing impervious coverage, as well as significantly reducing the amount of motor vehicle surfaces, providing a significant water quality benefit.
And where is that detention basin?
It's located along the western property line adjacent to Cottontail Lane.
Okay. And is there any screening or buffering around the detention basin?
Yes, there's a significant row of trees located along Cottontail Lane, right along the right-of-way line, which we'll be maintaining as well as supplementing with additional plantings. We will also be providing an additional row of landscaping adjacent on the opposite side of the detention system, and as well as some additional landscaping and the landscape islands adjacent to the loading dock. So we'll have 3 levels of buffering in that location.
Okay. Now, with respect to this application, what variances will we need?
But as you indicated, we will be looking for a variance for maximum impervious coverage, which is 60% is required for the zone. We are proposing 70.6. Again, it's a reduction from what's existing today, which is 71.3. And as I just stated, we will also be reducing a significant amount of motor vehicle areas on site to help better water quality for that.
So in essence, while we're reducing the impervious coverage, we're also reducing the parking areas that are currently on the site, and as a result of that reduction, there will be better water quality on this going into the detention basin. Is that correct?
That's correct. The roofs are considered clean in the stormwater world.
Okay. And the other variance?
It's a variance for the overall length of the loading area. The ordinance requires 2 times the overall length of the longest vehicle. In this case, it'd be 147 feet, whereas we'll be providing 140 feet with the additional width that we're providing in the loading dock area.
Okay. And the justification for that variance?
So again, we've designed numerous loading docks throughout the state, and this is an adequate area to come in, circulate the site, provide backing up area for a truck to safely access the loading dock area.
And have you provided to the reviewing engineer the township information demonstrating the adequacy of that loading area?
Yes, I have, and we'll provide, again, an updated version of that with the larger loading dock area.
Okay, and also, as a result of the reduction of the loading dock area, that also reduces the impervious coverage.
Correct.
Now, have you had an opportunity to review the staff reports that were generated in conjunction with this matter?
I have.
Okay. I will try to get you through them very quickly. There was a report dated August 18th by John House of Fire Prevention. He had 2 comments asking for additional hydrants in the location of the FDC connection. You have no problem complying with that report?
No problem.
Okay. And we have a report from Mr. Healy dated August 6th, 2022. Is that correct?
August 5th.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
August 5th. And going to his review comments, the issue of the tree protection and tree replacement, can you discuss with the board how many trees are being removed and how many trees are proposed in this plan to be replaced?
Certainly. So as far as tree requirement goes, we are required to provide 152 replacement trees for the trees that we're removing. We have a total of 69 trees that we're proposing to be replaced. So we have a replacement deficit of 83 trees. However, after reviewing Mr. Healy's review letter, we feel we can provide some additional trees. So as far as the site layout goes, we're thinking about 25 more trees to further reduce the deficit. And we can work with Mr. Healy on those locations of those trees.
And generally, where do you perceive those locations to be?
Generally, he had indicated near the parking lot areas. We can certainly talk about any additional screening that, adjacent to the truckload docking area, if that's where he sees with that. But we'd work with him to figure out where those would go.
Okay. Now, Mr. Healy also referenced the ordinance and trying to minimize the view of the loading dock from the public roadways under Section 112-33-6C. Can you indicate how the truck loading area is screened?
Certainly. Again, there's a significant number of existing trees located along Cottontail Lane that we're maintaining. We're going to be supplementing that with some additional plantings in the gaps of those trees, as well as we're providing an additional row of trees located on the opposite side of the detention system. So that's another layer of trees that we're blocking the court area, as well as adding some additional trees and shrubbery located directly adjacent to the loading dock and the landscape islands.
Okay. There are also some other comments that Mr. Healy has raised that I think are best addressed by the architect, so we'll save those. You've had an opportunity also to review the report of me dated August 16th, 2022.
Correct.
And that report consists of 7 pages. Can we address all of the comments contained in that report?
Yes.
And since that report was issued, have you had any discussions with Mr. Mazzi of CME, who was the author of that report?
Yes, I've just discussed the letter with Mr. Mazzi. We ran through each comment, and we feel we can address all the comments.
And there was one issue of concern that the applicant had concerning the tie-in to the existing water lines in the street, and it is our intent, if those water lines are usable, that we would intend to do that?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, and you discussed that also with Mr. Mazzi, and he's on board with that?
Yes, we did.
Regarding this application, besides Franklin Township, there are other agencies that have to review this application and render their opinion on it. Can you indicate to the board what the status of that is at the present time?
Certainly. So we have approval from the Somerset County Planning Board. We have approval from the Somerset Union Soil Conservation District. We have conditional approval from the Delaware River and Canal Commission, just pending this approval. We have NJDEP approval, and then we are still pending on the MUA approval.
And speaking of the MUA, obviously the site is serviced by all public utilities?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions of this witness.
One question. How about the Environmental Commission?
Yeah, I was just going to say the Environmental Commission report. They have a couple of good suggestions.
Solar panel, ready roof, no idling, I don't know what else.
Can somebody give me that report, because it was not provided to me?
Mark, can you give it in a copy, or I'll give Peter my copy?
And just another housekeeping thing, the depth in the loading dock width, in the paperwork it says you're proposing 130, you said 140.
That's correct. So our plan currently shows 130. We will be adding 10 extra feet in that loading dock area on our resubmission.
Here, you can have mine if you know.
I have it. Some of these issues are ironically, we've discussed. There was a request also by Mr. Healy, and the Environmental Commission also recommends that certain parking spaces be banked. Have you discussed this with the applicant?
Yes, we have.
And is the applicant willing to bank parking spaces?
Yes, if necessary.
Yeah. And if we were to bank the spaces, where would they be?
So there's a row of 25 parking spaces that are kind of ancillary, not located right along the building. We feel like that would be a very good area for banking.
Can you show that to the
Absolutely.
board and the members of the public so everybody knows the area?
Absolutely. It's along the warehouse building B, the southern building. Along the eastern edge of the building, there's 25 parking spaces to the east of that building.
And we can bank those, correct?
Correct.
I think the EV part was addressed.
Yes. And the solar ready, that would be the architect, but we will make the building solar ready. He'll testify to that. Anti-idling signs, we have no objection placing appropriate signage in the areas of the truck court.
Yep.
And can we provide a bike storage area somewhere on site, so if there are employees that should bike to the site, they have the ability to safely park their bicycles?
Yes, I'll work Mr. Healy on that location. It's fine.
Thank you. Now I have no further questions.
Okay. Board have any questions?
I have a question, Chairman. So I'm concerned about the pervious coverage. You are exceeding the pervious coverage by 17%. 60% is allowed, or going to be around 70.6%. So I feel that is excessive, and I wanted to ask you, have you looked more how to reduce the pervious coverage?
So I think by banking those spaces, again, if it's a need, on a needed basis, but those bank spaces would now be open space areas, so that would further reduce the
So
impervious coverage of that.
how much does it bring it
Sure,
down?
no problem. It would reduce it down to 69.9%.
That's not much.
Yep, but again, for the record, the site right now is 71.
Well, okay, then that's not an answer that I'm looking for, because then leave the site as it is, So you're proposing to rebuild, so you are required to meet the new conditions. So.
And leaving the site as it is would be a benefit to whom, since it's an
I
empty
don't know, you are asking us to approve your plan for new buildings. I'm just bringing a concern that you are exceeding the standards by
Yeah,
17%.
and we've given you justification. One other point, just to address, the increase in the impervious coverage, all of that is handled by the stormwater management system, correct?
Correct, we're reducing impervious on site, so we're thereby meeting the requirement.
Okay, and since the site has been there, the stormwater management system has adequately handled the 71.3% of the impervious coverage, correct?
Correct. And in addition, the real benefit here is the fact that the building is taking up more area than the existing impervious coverage that is covered by cars today. Currently, at the site, there's over 200 parking spaces, almost 300 parking spaces. And by taking that and making it a building, now it's all clean roof runoff. So there is an added benefit for this application because of that situation.
Thank you.
How many trucks currently visit the site?
No trucks today. There is a small loading dock at the existing site, I will say.
Any other questions for this witness? Well, if you think of any in the future, then still
just
remain
a-
sworn in.
Just a few.
Yeah, Mark.
Did you address the sidewalk along the frontage?
Sorry, yes, you're right. So currently, there's there's currently no sidewalk in the area, and also there's those existing trees and landscaping area that's right along the property line, right on the right-of-way, I should say. And ultimately, we're adding some more plantings in that location, which is important to block the truck court. So it'd be very difficult, I think, and we might lose some trees if we try to sneak in a sidewalk in that area. So we would request to contribute to this Sidewalk Fund, as this would be the only sidewalk in the area all along Cottontail Lane.
Yeah, I mean, I love a sidewalk, but I also don't want to, there's a very nice screen right now of very mature trees in front that you're going to keep. And so that's important. I'm trying to think of ways that someone who wanted to walk or bike could access from a slightly different manner out your site. And I'm not sure how they would do it.
Yeah, it's really curious. This is not, I guess, for tonight's discussion, but you mentioned the Sidewalk Fund. I'm just really curious where the money to this Sidewalk Fund is going as a resident of Franklin, but that's a different conversation, but one that we certainly need to visit. I'm curious from Mark's standpoint, as we continue to see development here, how long will we here will be the first to have a sidewalk? Someone has to be the first to start it. Why not you?
I understand. It's more the fact that there's a significant landscaping along the frontage. If the landscaping wasn't there, we would provide this.
Yeah, it's just something for us to consider moving forward. If everyone comes here and say no one has a sidewalk, no one will ever have a sidewalk, and we'll never get sidewalks in these areas. It's quite interesting that we assume that most of the people working at these places will only drive and not bike and walk. So it's just a concern that we at some point got to really address.
Yeah, especially since we made, a fairly concerted effort to have sidewalks on
Right.
Schoolhouse leading to, the corner of Elizabeth where there's services and people can access who work in office buildings and warehouses in this district. Would be nice to have, but I think, at least for me anyway, the benefit of having that mature buffer there, where you really don't see the existing building very much, and then you're going to enhance that landscaping to boot, kind of outweighs that. I suppose you could go out the back kind of toward Howard and then work your way up towards Cottontail that way, if you wanted to.
Mr. Chairman, if I could suggest, I'd caution the board to just assume that a sidewalk's going to damage the trees. When I look at Figure 4 in my report, there is a, relatively sizable flat area of grass between the curb and where the trees start. I think the board, you may want to have a discussion of, do you want to, have this be the start, and then maybe ask your engineer to look into, if this is going to, if the sidewalk's going to harm the trees. So for example, a condition could be something like, we want the sidewalk, unless our engineer confirms that it's going to remove all of those trees to put it in, then maybe you want to have it waived.
Mr. Healy, I will say that I think Figure 4 is on the wrong property. I think it's a little further up from us, or down Cottontail, I should say, to the south, because that frontage, our frontage, if you look at Figure 3, which right in front of the one area is flat, but as you get up toward the center of the site, there's a pretty decent berm there with trees located along it.
I don't think that's right, but either way, my suggestion stands that, again, I would suggest you don't decide right now that, yes, the sidewalk is going to remove the trees.
Yeah.
Decide one way or the other if you want it, and then if your engineer confirms, yes, this would, harm the trees, then it's waived. Something along.
And for the record, we have no objection. We're not adverse to putting the sidewalk in, but we felt in this situation, it was better not to do it. Obviously, we're going to pay the money whether we build it or give it to you, so I have no problem with CME going out there and evaluating the situation, and if they feel the sidewalk can fit, we'll gladly put it in.
Yeah, I think, I like Mark's suggestion. I think we would all be in favor of a sidewalk. in a vacuum, so let's go ahead and do that.
And then just a few other follow-ups. So I did get an email from Darren Mazzi, and he did confirm that you had a conversation with him today, but he suggested you comment to the board on a few things, or testify to the board. So he had said that the DEP confirmed that the project meets green infrastructure. Can you just summarize what that means to the board?
Certainly. So, so we submitted to the DEP for the proposed project, and we are reducing impervious coverage to the existing system, thereby meeting the water quality, quantity, ground recharge requirements, and complying with the new stormwater regs.
Okay, and he had said that the MTDs, I don't even know what that stands for, but it's going to be relocated 10 feet from the right-of-way line, and you confirmed to him that you would do that?
That's correct. The DRCC is required. They're manufactured treatment devices. It's just an added water quality benefit that the DRCC requested, and we've talked them to relocate them upstream of the system as opposed to near the right-of-way.
Okay. And he also said that you were going to provide some exhibits, calculations demonstrating the decrease in impervious coverage. I'm assuming that's in relation to the stormwater report.
Absolutely.
And you agreed to do that?
Agreed, yes.
Okay. That's it. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks, Mark. Go ahead with your next witness, Peter.
I will call my second witness, which is my architect. Who's also named Kyle.
You raise your right hand. You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do. Can you state your full name for the record, Kyle?
Sure, Kyle Ferrier. My last name's Ferrier.
And Mr. Furrier, are you a licensed architect in the state of New Jersey?
Yes.
And can you give the board the benefit briefly of your educational and professional background?
Sure. So I have a bachelor's degree in architecture. I have a Master of Science in Construction Management. I'm licensed in New Jersey as well as a handful of other states. I've been about 8 years working in light manufacturing and industrial buildings such as this.
I went over the testimony, Mr. Ferrier, Mr. Chairman.
He's accepted, Peter.
Okay. And you have prepared the architecturals that were submitted in conjunction with this application?
That's correct.
Okay. And we're proposing to construct 2 buildings.
That's right.
And they're approximately of the same size.
Approximately, about 116,000, 119,000 square feet.
And can you describe the buildings, the materials that are going to be used, and the colors? And if you have any exhibits or renderings, you can share them with the board.
Sure. So the buildings are similar, so I'm going to speak to Building B here. You see an overall floor plan of Building B. So the building consists of a concrete slab on grade, steel beams and girders. The roof structure, as was alluded to earlier, will be designed to accommodate future solar panels. The perimeter of the building is tilt-up concrete construction. And you'll see around the perimeter we have swing doors for egress and emergency access, all to meet code. We have the loading docks to the north of the page, and in the corner of the building we have just some utility rooms there. So these are elevations for Building B, exterior building elevations, which show the paint scheme materials for the building. We use architectural reveals and a variation of paint colors to create kind of an architectural effect. Any rooftop equipment that's not shown here on this elevation because it would not be visible from ground level. They'd be set back far enough from the building perimeter so as not to be seen. They wouldn't need screens or anything. They're low enough to the building where they wouldn't show. You'll see in the south elevation, towards the left side of the page, we have what would be the main entrance with some glazing, canopy over the front door to help indicate where employees will go every day. This is a preliminary office layout, a conceptual layout of what the office would be in the corner of the building. This would be the corner, favoring the street. Just a simple, about 2,500 square feet of, you walk into a vestibule and then an open office area, conference room, small kitchenette and restrooms per code, and then proceed through to the warehouse.
So that the office that we're proposing, and there is office space in each building approximately the same size, and that office is there to service the warehouse operation, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. And the office has its own separate entrance, and it has its own separate features at the corner of the building, correct?
That's correct.
And now you indicated that the materials, they're tilt-up panels. What color are those tilt-up panels?
So for that, I'll go back to the elevations here. It's a neutral paint scheme, so we have like a light, medium, and dark shade of gray, kind of like a slate gray, and then we accent that with a darker blue color to kind of, it is a speculative building, so we try to pick something neutral that appeals to a variety of tenants.
Okay, and there are obviously doors on each of the buildings for the tractor trailers to access the building?
Correct.
And there are also man doors as required by code?
That's correct.
Are there any windows that are being proposed to bring some natural light into the building?
Yeah, so we're proposing windows at what would be the future office at the first corner that you get to when you come into the site, and also at the, we'll call the secondary entrance, potential future entrance. We provide knockouts for future window openings. If there were to be two tenants, they could easily add punch windows there as well.
So that each of these buildings has the potential to be subdivided to have more than one tenant?
That's correct.
Okay. And you indicated that all of the mechanical equipment, the HVAC systems will be located on the roof?
That's correct.
And they will not be visible from the roadway to be seen by either a passing motorist or if somebody was walking by, correct?
That's correct.
And will that affect, if a future tenant wanted to put solar panels on the building, would that affect their ability to put solar panels on the building?
No, there are very few units. They don't take up very much space on the roof at all, so there's plenty of room elsewhere for a future solar array.
See, I think Mr. Healy, I want to make sure I covered, he had a couple architectural comments. I just want to make sure I get them covered. The issue that was raised by Mr. Healy in his report indicating that the sides of the building that are facing and visible to the street should be designed and finished in an attractive manner, which should present architecturally as the front of the building. How is the building, are the panels similar all around the entire building?
Yeah, we've continued the same paint scheme and accent pattern around all four sides of the building, really, with emphasis on the long side, on the office side, and as well as the street side. The windows tend to favor the corner a little bit, just because we are screening a large part of the building with the trees on the truck court side, and they're pretty shallow buildings. They're not very deep, so it does favor the corner a bit. But the paint scheme itself does wrap around, so that both sides do have the same sort of language and feel.
And I think your last exhibit, if you go to the last page, actually is a rendering of the, there it is.
Yes.
Okay. So this is like the last reveal. And this shows the building with the various shades of gray and then the office at the corner. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the colors that are shown there represent the colors that you intend to have on the building.
That's right.
Thank you. No further questions.
I have a quick question. Is there a unwritten rule in architecture that all these warehouses have to be slate gray and white? Because you got one or two right down the street from this that actually look almost the same.
Right. We just try to pick something that is, neutral, because it is a speculative facility. We do often design right for an end user, and that would be a little bit different. But when they're speculative facilities, we just try to come up with something that appeals to a variety of users. That's all.
Does anybody ever go for more earth tone type?
Yeah, and very often we will get requests to tone down the colors as well. Sometimes, the brighter, warmer colors, the reds and the oranges, we do propose those from time to time. Yeah, they tend to gravitate more neutral though throughout the process.
I don't know what I would recommend without seeing examples of them, but I just thought I would bring up that point that we seem to only be getting gray and white, slate gray and white. I think we should at some point look for something different, especially on the same street, with neighbors like that.
Okay, I'm sure that's something we could look into with the applicant. Yeah, I'm sure they'd be open to that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Bob. I mean, it would be nice to have something that, where the accents are not just white, or perhaps if they are, then something around there is a little bit brighter, or more earth-toned, or something like that. Because, have enough of these coming in, and they do tend to look the same. We have fairly attractive self-storage facilities, actually, that manage to do a pretty good job with color schemes. So it would be good if you could look into that. I mean, it doesn't need to be anything like, American Dream was when it started, and they kind of ripped it all out. We're not looking for that. We're just looking for something a little bit, maybe.
Understood.
I will advise the applicant. I'm not going to promise that the applicant will agree, but I will indicate to them what your wishes are, and we'll see what we can do. And for the record, I've done a few of these, and I have a few more coming, and I think in discussing it with future applications, maybe I can get the word out to some of the other people before we get here as to the concern that the board has.
Okay, then, for the record, could I say one other thing about this? I see a couple other ones where they have sections of the sides that are going, they're like boards, they're vertical, instead of just concrete. Ferraro Foods, they're horizontal, not vertical. Ferraro Foods has a building where they have what looks almost like aluminum siding that's going vertical on a big section of it. A darker beige, a lighter beige, something like along the long side of the building, so that it's broken up a little bit, and it doesn't look like just a big long, actually almost like a prison wall. That's not what this looks like, I don't mean that, but it ought to be, you guys spend a lot of time in school studying this. There ought to be a little more creativity sometimes, I think, especially with the number of these facilities that we're getting.
I think we hear you loud and clear, Mr. Thomas. I will communicate that with the applicant and see if we could do something with this building. But like I said, I think probably in the future I can advise other applicants before they get here that that's a concern that the board has, so that when we come in here we'll have perhaps a different look.
Thank you.
Good. Ted?
Now, remember, I think we've had some applications for warehouses with some blue in the panoply of architectural treatments. That's perhaps the next most acceptable. I understand the builder feels that make it as neutral as possible so that no prospective tenant will object to the color. But still, the township has to live with it too. But I had just one question. This is in the CME report, number 17. The architectural plan delineates potentially 30 dock doors along the southern building line of proposed Building A. However, only 16 dock doors are proposed. The applicant should provide testimony regarding why doors are not being proposed at all dock locations. It may be just that you're presenting them differently, but I thought I would ask about that.
Sure, I think one of the older versions of one of these exhibits had only half of the dock doors truly in place, as you're referring to. I'll go back to the floor plan here. We do show the number of positions stays the same, it's just whether or not there's an actual loading dock door at that. So we're proposing all loading dock door
I would think
positions.
so, because otherwise there wouldn't be a functional dock.
Sure. So the latest exhibit here shows them all fully equipped dock positions.
Yeah, I was just looking at this, and I could see the difference that was shown, that some of them look like real doors, and some of them look like a place for a door.
Right.
But since Mr. Russo picked up on that, I thought I'd ask.
Okay.
And I'm glad to hear solar ready. Solar cells would be even better, but I know you always want to defer to the tenant.
If there are no other questions for this witness, Peter, bring on traffic.
Yes, Mr. Taylor, whose first name is not Kyle.
Swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Mr. Taylor, you're a licensed engineer in the state of New Jersey specializing in traffic? Yes, I am. And have you testified before this board and have been qualified before this board previously? Yes, I have.
Please accept it, Peter.
Okay. And your firm, under your direction, prepared a report dated February 17, 2022, is that correct? Yes, that's correct. Okay. And I'd like you to do a couple of things. I'd like you to indicate to the board what the traffic generation is based on the ITE standards for the office building that is currently in place.
Surely. The existing facility, which is approximately 193,000 square foot office building, would generate, based on ITE rates, 295 trips during the morning peak hour, 287 trips during the evening peak hour, and 2,092 trips daily on a typical weekday.
Okay. And then, as a result of this application, what would be the trip generation from the site?
So the proposed approximately 236,000 square foot of warehouse would generate 52 trips during the morning peak hour, 55 trips during the evening peak hour, and 411 daily trips throughout the day, which results in a reduction of 243 trips during the morning, 232 trips during the evening, and 1,681 daily trips as a result of the redevelopment of the project.
Okay, and obviously, the types of vehicles that are accessing the site as an office building are predominantly cars with some limited trucks that are making deliveries. This site, as proposed, is going to be predominantly a tractor-trailer-based site, is that correct?
Yes, so I mean, there is truck traffic that's associated with an office building. You have office supplies coming in, you have FedEx, UPS, now you have Amazon delivering to things. When we look at what ITE would project, you're talking about 3 trucks during any one of the peak hours for the office building, and approximately 10 during the whole day, right? 10 trips in, 10 trips out. The warehouse is going to generate truck traffic. That's the point of the warehouse. However, what we're talking about during the peak hours, the peak commuting hours, is only 4 during the morning peak hour or 5 during the evening peak hour based on the size of the proposed warehouse. So you're really not talking about a lot of trucks during those busy commuting hours. And daily, we would project approximately 45 trucks in and 45 out for 90 daily trips for the warehouse. So you're really only, 55. So you're really only talking about an increase, about 45 trucks throughout the day with the proposed redevelopment.
And the truck traffic and the location of this site, those trucks have access to 287, is that correct?
Yes, there is prime access via Cottontail and Weston Canal Road to the interchange at 287.
Okay. And you indicate that basically
the AM and PM peak hours, the tractor trailer or truck traffic would be almost the same as it currently exists today?
That's correct.
Okay. What is the level of...
I wasn't using it anyway, but...
Oh, okay. We can get that back if we need it. The level of service at these driveways and at the intersections surrounding the subject property as they currently exist, and what effect does this project have on the level of service?
So because we're talking about a reduction in traffic during the peak hours and daily, the levels of service would be much better than it would be if the office building was fully occupied. We didn't actually run capacity analysis because when you look to the Institute of Transportation Engineers or the NJDOT for the amount of traffic that would require study or significant impact, it's 100 new trips. Now, as I testified, we've got over 250 trips that are being reduced, taking off of the road in comparison to the warehouse. So it's going to be an improvement over if the office building was fully occupied.
Okay. Now, you've also reviewed the site for on-site circulation, for adequacy of parking, and do you have an opinion as to whether this site, whether the circulation works on this site for both the passenger employee vehicles and the tractor trailers, and are the turning movements all able to be made with safety on site?
Yes, they are. We worked hand in hand with the site engineer in order to design the loading aisles and the driveways to accommodate the tractor trailers. I do agree with the suggestion of the board's engineer to provide the additional 10 feet in the loading area for a little bit additional ease of movement through there, but there will be safe and efficient access to and from the site and throughout this site.
Okay. And you also heard that the Environmental Commission requested that we bank certain parking spaces. The reduction of those 25 spaces or the banking of them, will that have, in your mind, any detrimental effect on the adequacy of parking on the site?
I do not. I think the reduction of the 25, we still will have sufficient parking to support the demand of the project. And if they end up with a tenant that needs a couple more spaces, they have the ability to go construct those 25.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Questions from the board for this one?
I have one. I understand what your testimony is saying according to the manual about the numbers of trips and the fact that it's a reduction. I also want to make sure we understand it's a reduction of what it would be if it were still a functioning office building.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. As it stands now, it's been vacant for quite some time. So what traffic is produced is additional traffic, and do you see that as an impact on the street, especially in light of other development that's going on in the immediate area and on that street? Like I said, I hear your numbers, I understand what you're saying, but there's no way of putting it any other way. It is every one of those trips is an increase over what's there today.
It's a great question. I think I need to unpack it a little bit. There's two parts to that. From a traffic standpoint, from a trip generation standpoint, my responsibility is to take a look at what the impact of the redevelopment could be. And part of that is the fact that this office building, without needing to come before the board, could go back and reoccupy. It could be fully functioning, and all that traffic could be on there. That being said, I'll go back to the thresholds that are set forth by the NJDOT and the Institute of Transportation Engineers. And it's that 100 new trips through any intersection is an indication that maybe you should be looking at that intersection. The project as a whole generates 52 peak hour trips in the morning and 55 in the evening, or half of what the ITU or the NJDOT would consider significant. So even if we take out the fact that the office building could be reoccupied as of right, and if this was a virgin piece of land, the traffic associated with the project during the peak hours still wouldn't rise to the level of a significant impact.
Okay, I understand again all of that. I just want to know that, not compare it to what could be developed. Just tell me, in your professional opinion, that what is going to be generated there can fit in and function with the street as it exists and in light of the development that's presently going on. That's all I want to know. I want to know that it could be, 300,000 square foot office building. Hasn't been for years. It's not going to be.
And it's a fair enough point. It is my professional opinion that given the two driveways and the connectivity of the street and the roadway network, that there will not be a significant impact to any of the surrounding roadway intersections, and they will continue to operate at good levels of service with the traffic associated strictly with the proposed warehouse development.
All I wanted to know, we could save a lot of wind.
I have one question. Signage to indicate trucks going to the right way down to Cottontail, I assume, to Weston Canal onto 87 would be the preferred route.
That would be the preferred route, and if we can put some signage up on the site, we'll look at that and come up with some signage. I think we did it on other applications, so we can direct the trucks where they need to go and keep them away from areas where you don't want them to go.
Yes, that would be good. And I would make that probably a condition of approval, that those signs go up.
I think it's a great suggestion.
Indicating, which direction trucks should preferably take.
It really should be that the tenant directs any truck drivers that they employ, that they use that route of access. Can't be absolutely sure about deliveries being made, but
I think we can accommodate that, Mr. Chase. Like I said, we've had a few other applications and came up with sign packages that made sense based on their location, and I'm sure we can come up with a sign package on this site.
yeah, this one's probably less of a problem because really coming in from the north, from Western Canal Road is the very obvious means of access, where some other applications, trucks might try some different form of access following their Google Maps. And I don't know whether you were here when we had the mayor of Southbound Brook in complaining about trucks going over to Elizabeth Avenue via Edgewood, but that's not likely to be a problem for this application.
Yeah, I was here that night, and again, I think this site is completely different than that site, and I don't think that would be a problem.
Great.
I'm curious if it's a professional opinion regarding the IT, e-manual, and DOT falsely equating the equivalency of a personal vehicle with that of a truck. As an engineer, when you look at the impacts in terms of the number of trips, sure, it's a one-to-one relationship. But when you look at the impact of the truck on the quality of life of the neighborhood, particularly the air quality concerns, as well as the concerns of cyclists who have a bicycle lane on their street, what impact is it causing them potentially?
So I think when we start to take a look at the truck generation for this, as I stated, we're talking about 5 to 7 trips during the peak hour, right? So a truck every 10 minutes or so during those busy peak hours. I don't think it's going to have any type of detrimental impact to the operation of the intersections or to the nature, the character of where this is being proposed, right? There are other trucks traveling through this area. There's other warehouse development going on through this area. And the orientation, the close proximity to the interchange with 287 up Weston Canal, I think orients the truck traffic that's going to be coming to and from this site.
You take into consideration the bicycle lane that is on Cottontail?
The width of Cottontail is more than sufficient to handle the tractor trailer as well as the bicycle lane. We're not changing that.
Okay, so no concerns there?
I do not have a concern, no.
Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we can open to the public for any public comment.
Thank you very
Make
much.
a motion that we open to the public.
Move.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good evening. Shirley Tallman, once again from Tallman Lane. How much time do I have?
Once you're asking questions, as long as the questions are relevant, there's no time frame.
Thank you, because I have a couple of things to say. I'd just like to clarify, sir, you represent here tonight Link Logistics, if I'm reading the map right. I saw a link. Could you just clarify that for me?
That is correct.
Okay. And we residents at Franklin Township are quite aware of Link's business approach. And quite frankly, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that it really doesn't take the human aspect at all into consideration. So let me maybe tell you something that you don't know about.
Okay, let me stop you right here, ma'am. It's got to be confined to planning comment.
Okay, it is.
No.
It's the
I
human
haven't heard anything.
aspect
No,
of
it's
this
not.
plan.
Sorry, it doesn't qualify as a planning comment.
All right, then let me rephrase it. I'll rephrase that. I'm not a lawyer, but I can rephrase it, okay?
You can try.
Within less than a mile of this, and I do applaud you for, reusing, what is the word? I'll say reuse of the...
Redevelop?
Thank you. Yeah, there's another word, but it's not coming to me right now. But I like that, and we have told all of you folks that that's what we would hope would happen, because we know there are a lot of warehouses and office buildings that are sitting vacant. So that part of the plan, I have no problem with. But within an eighth of a mile, there is a residential community, and it's been there for at least 60 years. And I know for a fact that, I can't tell you how many people live there, but I can tell you for a fact that, because I personally know one family, that they want to stay there. They don't want to sell their home and leave. They've already been imposed upon by 287, and they live with the noise. They've lived with it for years. However, what you are now asking is that they're going to have to live with a new kind of noise, more air pollution, which we've talked about, unless you can guarantee that the diesel trucks in this speculative development will all be clean diesel, which would help. But I don't know, can you do that?
We cannot guarantee that because we don't know who the end user is for the site. Obviously, there are certain things that we can control, such as the idling of vehicles or prohibiting that and things of that nature to help reduce those concerns that you have, but we can't guarantee anything.
I happen to live right across from another very large acreage that Link has purchased, and the situation is the same. It's spec. So we don't know what's going to happen. And so when you don't know what is going to happen, naturally people who live and have invested in the homes right near it are very concerned about what could happen. That really concerns me about the business plan of a Link coming into our communities, because it raises another question. Why are these all specs? Why do we not have tenants who want to move into these at this point? Can you tell me?
Usually tenants don't commit to a site until it's approved.
Okay, so are you telling me that that is the business plan, that once this is approved, you will have a tenant?
You would hope that my client will have tenants fairly soon after the building is constructed to move into the building. Otherwise, they're not very good business people if they build buildings that remain empty.
Well, I'm not suggesting that everyone that they build is going to remain empty, but I'm telling you, sir, that I have a little bit of finance background. And I know that there are tax benefits sometimes to having empty real estate.
Link is not in the business of holding empty real estate. Link is one of the largest warehouse holders in the United States, and they build buildings to lease them.
I'll check that data, thank you.
You're welcome.
Getting back to this community that I talked about that is within an eighth of a mile, I'm going to tell you that I personally know because a relative of mine lives there. And I'm not going to go into all of the details, but we've talked about the rate of cancer in New Jersey, and it's high. And that is an overburdened community right there. And I happen to know that within one family, a mother has buried a daughter prematurely.
Okay, again, I'm going to have to redirect you, so...
Okay, I will. I'll get back on track.
Maybe we can establish what the ground rules are in a way. I mean, this is a site plan application, and I don't recall if she was sworn, but, you know, typically there's either questions on the application and the testimony that was provided, so typically, just like this board...
Mr. Healy, I have that question.
If I could finish, I listened to you, so if I could finish.
Sorry.
Just like this board has been asking questions about the plans and the testimony, the public has an opportunity to ask questions about the plans and the testimony. This is your opportunity to do that. Or if you have comments on this application, you have to be sworn, and then you have to make comments about this application. So I'm just making sure we're all aware of that's what the process is on these hearings.
Okay, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Well, the question that I have, or one of them, is why do you need the variance on the loading dock length?
I think Mr. Kavinsky answered it, but I will have Mr. Kavinsky come up here and repeat why we are requesting.
I'm sorry if I didn't hear it.
So, sorry. The loading dock area for the ordinance requires double the length of the largest truck that's accessing the loading dock area, which would be 147 feet. We are going to provide 140 feet, which is adequate with our truck turning to provide access to that loading dock area.
What type of truck is this, please?
It's a WB67 tractor trailer.
It is a tractor trailer.
Correct.
It is a smaller than the typical 18-wheelers that we see on 287 now?
No, it's probably the same size as the one.
It's the same size?
Correct.
Okay. And you're only asking for how much of a variance?
It'd be 7 feet.
What is the point?
Again, we feel that we don't need, so again, we're trying to reduce impervious coverage on the site as a benefit to everyone. So we're reducing that down and we can make it adequately work with 7 less feet.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. I think that's all I have right now, but I would just like to say that it's an overburdened community, and I would like that to be please taken into consideration. 60 years the community was there.
Good evening. My name is Kiki Anastasakos. I live at 3204 Enclave Circle in Canal Walk, and I'm here as a member of the Citizens Warehouse Action Group, as a resident, a taxpayer, and a voter.
Can we just swear you in, whether you have questions or you make comments, can we just swear you in? Can you just raise your right hand? You swear the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, having been sworn, that means that I can make comments in addition to asking questions, yes? Just making sure. Okay.
I mean, that's what we're going to do. Yes.
Yes? Okay, thank you. So the first thing that I want to say, and then I will ask my questions, there would be a laywoman's questions, because we're not professionals, but we are professional residents of this township. So we are professionals of a very important sort. I would like to urge this planning board to reject this application. I think Franklin Township has reached the tipping point when it comes to warehouses. And by tipping point, I mean that traffic-wise, air quality-wise, noise-wise, quality of life-wise, we have had enough. Okay? And I think that you, being a governing body and making recommendations to the Township Council, have a very important responsibility to think about the quality of life of the residents of Franklin Township. I think what has happened here the last several years is that we have opened the floodgates to the likes of Link Logistics to cover every inch of earth in Franklin Township and to pollute every drop of clean air that children on Elizabeth Avenue Elementary School and Franklin Township High School breathe day in and day out. I could go on and on, but I do have a few questions. My first question is, somebody mentioned, I think it was Mr. Healy mentioned the term green building. And I have been reading about green buildings, green warehouses, LED certified warehouses, because after all, I figured, well, since I live in a township that plans to become the warehouse capital in Somerset County, I might as well read about the latest LEED certification, because after all, we're all concerned about climate change, aren't we? Okay, so my question is, has the builder applied for LED certification, and if not, why not?
Yes, so Link has made it a policy for all their new buildings to be LEED certified for any development they have.
So is this particular building certified?
Yeah, it will be certified, yes.
It will be certified.
It is to be developed first, yeah.
So how can be, if you can help me understand, how can it be LEED certified when you're asking for a variance of 69.9%? To cover 69.9% of impervious area, when in fact the LEED criteria clearly specify that the builder is supposed to leave 40% of the natural habitat untouched. You're leaving 30%, sir, not 40. So how do you expect to become LEED certified? You have every intention, but are you in fact going to become certified? There's a difference.
Yes, I understand. So as part of the LEED certification, there's a number of points that you need to hit to be LEED certified. Not necessarily all the points are hit, but there's a number of points. So in this, again, it's probably better for the architect, but I believe there's going to be LED lighting inside that's energy efficient. You get a point for that. There's certain aspects of the building that you get points for using, and low flow toilets, another one, you get a point. So there's various aspects of the entire project as a whole that's how you become LEED certified. It's not just one aspect of it.
Okay, so you plan, so I'm sorry, did I miss getting your answers to how you expect to become certified if you're not leaving untouched the 40% of the natural area?
There are other aspects that are LEED certified.
Okay, so you're adding up the points.
Exactly, yes.
And then you can still be certified even if you're not covering, even if you're not leaving the 40% untouched.
Correct.
So the solar panels, I love the term solar ready. Okay, solar ready. Oh yes, we're ready. The question is that according to LEED certification, your roof has to be equipped with solar panels, not just to be ready to get the solar panels. But your application has to show that you, when you start the construction, you're going to install solar panels, are you?
The answer is that if the tenant desires to have solar panels installed, then they will be installed. They will not necessarily be installed at the beginning unless the tenant wants it. And I think concerning the issues of LEED certification, perhaps the architect is best to answer those questions rather than the engineer.
Yeah, so similar to, like my colleague just said, it's similar to the impervious coverage. The solar, to meet LEED certification, you don't have to check every single box on the list.
Okay.
That would be my answer to the solar as well, yeah.
Okay, so we're already not checking the 40% natural area box. We're not checking the solar panel box. Let me see. Are you installing, is it in your current plan that you plan to install energy-efficient fans, which also reduce electricity and they become more energy efficient?
I believe so. I am not the lead. The applicant has a lead consultant, as well as my mechanical engineer will come on board to design the mechanicals of the building. I can't speak to that. I believe so.
You believe so, but you're not certain?
Not certain, no.
Okay. Thank you. Also, in order to be LED certified, you must use equipment, because this is going to be a warehouse, right? That does not use diesel or other polluting substances, but rather it's electric, robotic, but electric machines that do the picking, the shelving, and whatever. Is your current plan including these EV types of equipment that the workers will use in the warehouse?
We can't answer that question because we don't know who the tenant is.
Okay.
And also, just for the record, I think this area is really above and beyond what the purview of the board is. I think the applicant has indicated that we intend to apply for LEED certification.
Yeah.
And we do intend to do that.
We're not going to cover every point.
Okay, clearly, thank you. Yes, I understand that you have every intention to apply. Well, I can tell you, based on my understanding, my layperson's understanding of your current application, you are not going to get LED certification, okay? Now, with regards to traffic, how well do you know the community around this part of Franklin Township, Somerset? If you can give us some demographics, please.
So before this goes off the rails, let me clarify what you can respond to. Let's just ask him a question.
Yeah.
In terms of this application.
Yeah.
He is not here to
Okay, let me rephrase that. I'm so sorry.
specific.
Yes, okay, I don't want to prolong this. It's not I'm not trying to take over everybody's time here. But are you aware of the fact that there are 4 retirement communities? And this is in reference, the reason I bring this up, this is my question, is in reference to the traffic study that you did. And the assumptions that you made about traffic during rush hour, in the morning, in the afternoon, and so forth. Okay, so the area has, and I'm talking specifically about the Somerset part of Franklin Township. In addition to warehouses, it so happens that there are corporate buildings, of course, and 4 retirement communities. That means that these retirees, like myself, are not commuters. We're not commuting to work at 8 o'clock. We're not commuting back from work at 5 or 6 o'clock. We drive to the doctor's, to the grocery store, to pick up our meds from CVS,
Okay, well, again,
Yes.
we have another
sorry.
application, we have another person behind.
Yes, I will wrap it up, thank you. You're absolutely right. So with a very rough calculation, we're talking about 6,000 residents that live in a radius of 2 miles from where your warehouse is going to be. And as I said, you mentioned that the daily trips during morning and afternoon rush hour are going to be diminished. That means we're going to have substantial additional truck traffic in the mid of the day, which is when we get around, okay? And so how do you propose that an already busy and dangerous intersection at Cottontail and Schoolhouse, and the intersection of Schoolhouse and Elizabeth Avenue that is becoming, take your life in your own hands if you want to go there for us, how do you propose that your truck-generated traffic will not worsen the situation?
So based on the location of the proposed site and the proximity of the interchange with 287, it's my opinion that the vast majority of the trucks are going to be traveling north on Cottontail to Weston Canal. So they won't be going south on Cottontail, getting anywhere near Schoolhouse, and they won't be over by Elizabeth because they're going to be oriented to and from the highway and the interstate roadway network.
Okay, thank you, but with all due respect, I think you're making a lot of assumptions here. The truck drivers are human beings. There was one idling outside ShopRite, having lunch. There was another one idling on Schoolhouse. And so how do you propose that you will command the minds of the truck drivers to leave directly when they come in after a very long trip? They will not. They will spend time in the area at our expense and at the risk of our safety. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to have the time.
Good evening. My name is Julius Seppi, and I reside at, you guys call it 405 Queens, but I call it 407.
Want to raise your hand so we can just swear in? Do you swear that any testimony you're about to give will be the whole truth, nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
So I reside at 405 Queens Place, which you have down on paper, and it's directly behind the warehouse that's going to be proposed. My concerns are just basic stuff. You know, I heard the architect talk about the fans are going to be going in the back of the building. I'm right behind there. So all the noise is going to come to my house. What else do we have? You have, I don't know, does the building itself, I see that the loading docks are in the middle. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, right there, that's exactly where my house is. So all these truck and traffic is going to go right there all day long, all night long. So, and I'm also concerned about the LED lights that you guys proposed, which are very bright. Yes, they're energy efficient, but the lights are very bright. It's going to be on all night long. And my bedroom's facing right directly at that location, right behind it.
There are municipal ordinances that prohibit light spillage from our site onto other people's properties, and actually LED lights work to that benefit.
Well, I'm just saying, it's fairly bright.
And they will be shielded. And we're not allowed to have the light spill pursuant to the ordinance onto your property or anybody else's property.
Right, because as in the summertime, we got a little bit of barrier, which is fine. I mean, you guys are going to do what you're going to do anyway, but that's fine. I mean, but these are my concerns, like either health concerns due to idling trucks, the noise, and basically all that stuff. Like, that's basically it. All these trucks on the loading docks, the amount of traffic is going to generate over there, and everything's going to move behind. And you guys mentioned something about the HVAC system fans on the roof. Was that you?
Yeah, so any rooftop equipment would be set in from the perimeter of the building. That's all. It's not at ground level beside the building, behind the building. It'd be on top, far enough from the edge of the building, so.
Yeah, but it's going to go towards my house, that particular area. And because I see there's other factories out there, like the pharmaceutical company that's on Cottontail as well, they're pretty far back, but I hear the fans rumbling all the time. And there's other issues there, but that's, my concern is those fans are it's gonna be right by the house. And the other thing is, how far is the building gonna be built from my house? What's the maximum, or what's the distance of this warehouse?
So your house is approximately 200 feet from the property line. So the building is set in roughly 80 or so feet in from the property line. So we're talking about 280 feet from the building to your house.
Because wasn't there any, there's a meeting before, there was like anything was supposed to be like 500 feet?
I believe that's to the zones, the
500 feet from
residential zone.
500 feet
Correct.
from residential zone. So that's a little bit closer than 500 feet, right?
That doesn't apply to this.
Okay. It doesn't apply, sir, over here for two reasons. Number one, this came in well before that ordinance, and you're not in a residential zone. You might be a residence, but you're not in a residential zone, so that ordinance wouldn't apply.
Okay, well, either, like I said, my concern is basically the noise, and it's like, that's, there's no kind of barricade of any kind to like even block the trucks or the noise that's coming from there right in the middle, or things that, basically, those concerns, that's all.
Mr. Chairman, if I may just briefly address that issue. There are state statutes that involve noise generated from all facilities, whether they're manufacturing, warehousing.
Well, correct.
If I may finish. And they have different decibel levels at the property line, both during daytime hours and also in the evening. If in fact there is a concern that whatever noise may be generated by this facility would exceed those standards, then obviously we are subject to having to remediate that by putting up a wall or doing other things to ameliorate that condition. We do not feel it is necessary based on what we're doing in the location, and I think Kyle can go into it further.
So, okay, we could address that sooner or later, because like I said, my only concern with that is, even though it's low or high noise, it's the constant noise that never goes away, okay? Like the fans, for instance, okay? It's just constantly there. Like I hear it now, there's places there just generates noise like that constant.
We are proposing a double row of evergreen trees along the back of the loading dock area to shield further. I'm not letting you know that.
Well, I would suggest maybe a wall, only because those trees are not gonna do, because there was a company there, a few years ago, Absorbent Products, which made a lot of noise. Very, things, it's just nothing ever buried the noise.
There is nothing, at least at this juncture, to indicate that any noise that is going to be generated from this site rises to the level of having a need for a wall. However, as I said, if in fact there is noise that is generated that does exceed the standards, then you should be notifying the township. The township can take the readings, and we may be required at that point in time to construct a wall. But there is nothing that says we need that at this time.
Okay.
And quite frankly, sometimes living next to a wall may not be the best thing either.
Well, that's what you're basically putting up there, is a wall.
Well,
so that's what it is.
But again, you have certain protections with state laws
you got two big walls.
that we need to comply with.
Well, you have two big walls coming up as buildings.
Hey,
Okay.
there was a property off of Tara Greens Family Golf Course Center. I think, Peter, you represented them. A major warehouse was coming there off of Veronica Avenue. We put up a wall to shield that property from the noise. I think this gentleman here has a fair complaint, considering that he is surrounded by warehouse development, and he has sufficient tree coverage during the summertime, but in the winter months that disappears, and the noise could certainly be a problem. We don't need a test. His testimony is data,
And also,
that we should consider, in my opinion.
Mr. Brown, if, first of all, we can't be responsible for noise that may be generated from other facilities. We're responsible for noise that's generated from our facility. And again, we have a legal obligation, should we make noise that exceeds the state standards, to do something to ameliorate that. It could be a wall, it could be screening or sound screening around the fans, it could be sound screening around the mechanical equipment. There's a lot of things that can be done, but we don't know if they need to be done. And with respect to that wall by Tower Greens, maybe I can let Mr. Healy, I think, never mind, I won't go into it, but I don't know if... I don't know if that wall, probably the people who asked for it are happy that they have it, but that's another story.
Well, like I said, that building itself is 2 walls, so what's the difference? So, then the other thing too, with the wind, on good days, it usually comes out of the northwest. You have an open lot right there with trucks idling, smoking, noise, which the wind will bring it right to the house.
Well, there shouldn't be any idling or smoking.
Well, there shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be.
There shouldn't be, but it always is, so. By any means, everybody, it's going to be idling. Nobody's going to stop that, so. You see that every quick check store, there's no
I
idling.
really don't see the difference between this situation and the one on Veronica, because we didn't know before then that, you could make the same argument. Did you know that it would cause anything, and we'll wait and see, but you didn't wait and see. You put up the wall for that one resident who was remaining there. So could we not do that here?
Mike, let me explain, you mind if I
swear in?
Yeah,
You swear the testimony you're about to give will
I
be
do.
the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the
I'm
truth?
Vince Dominic, I'm the Township's Economic Development Director. The reason why that wall was put up, because it was a contractual agreement between the developer and the people who owned the property and the person who was going to stay in that house. That's the only reason that wall was put up. The developer did not want to put that wall up because the cost was in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. The individual who was going to stay in that house, and the purchase price was adjusted to do that. It's the only reason that wall was put up. It wasn't put up because the planning board requested it, the developer thought it was needed, the developer didn't think it was needed, and I'm pretty sure if you took the readings now, you would find out noise was not generated. It was a contractual agreement that in a negotiation with the price. So it's a completely different situation. The planning board didn't make the recommendation, the developer didn't want to do it, it was contractual.
Okay, thanks for the clarification.
Either way, it's going to generate any type of noise, and it's a steady noise, and it's a very bothersome thing. So I consider that a health risk as well.
And again, we're committed, if the noise that we generate from the site exceeds the state standards, we will be obligated to put a wall up.
Well, even if it's 10 decibels, if it's steady, wouldn't that get on your nerves? If it's like 10 decibels and it's just constant, like a fan, I'm just stating the fact, that's all. It would get on your nerves, that's all I'm saying. So, those are my legitimate basic concerns. You guys are going to build it anyway, so I just want to live there and not get any of the noise.
Well, I'm sorry, but I think what he's saying, they have an obligation.
I got you.
If the noise is there, to fix it. You have an obligation, if this is approved, and the building's up and the noise is there and it bothers you, you have an obligation then to bring it to this township violation, code enforcement, to make them aware of it so that the process can be started to fix it. We can go on for the next 5 hours going back and forth. The solution is there. Part of it is your responsibility, part of it is, their legal issue. If it's brought to their attention, they have to fix it.
Well, I got you.
All right?
I get all the legal issues. It's just pretty close to my house, and it's going to generate a lot of different things like that. That's
I
all my
understand, but we
concerns.
go back to the same thing. If it bothers you, you have to come into the township and let someone know.
Okay, I think we've covered this. We got 2 people waiting, and we still have one more application, so I'm going to get five more minutes. 9:15, we're going to close the public portion, and then we got to go on to the next application.
I just want to inform you that it's actually the county health department that enforces both anti-idling laws, and we have a township
2 minutes.
anti-idling ordinance in the works, and noise questions in general, because they have the equipment to measure the
Okay, Ted,
noise at your
let's
property line.
do that offline. We need to get to the next, there's other people waiting. We're going to go to 2 minutes now. So you'd be totally limited to 2 minutes because we have another applicant waiting to get this to be heard, so.
Just my basic final thing is just, it's very close to the house. Any noise going to be generated, I hope the board takes that into consideration. Thank you.
We got it.
All right?
So Christine's going to set a timer for 2 minutes, so let's focus.
With all due respect, Mr. Chairman. Just raise your right hand before, do you swear any testimony about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. With all due respect, Chairman, you can't limit us to 2 minutes. We are talking about this particular project.
I know, but we also have another application here.
I understand that,
And we have to be
but
respectful.
once you close off the public speaking portion, you're going to vote. So I don't think it's right to do that and shut me down for 2 minutes.
I'll hear the people who are here for 2 minutes each.
I don't think that's right. I really don't. I mean, all the other people had more than 2 minutes, and I have legitimate concerns about this project.
Okay, well, we want to hear them, so start.
But it shouldn't be 2 minutes. With all due respect. So let me just make a statement first. There are several things, the sidewalks, the trees, and even the building. I agree with you, Commissioner Thomas. It looks like a prison. So why aren't there any windows on these buildings? It's ridiculous. It doesn't look like anything but a box, and it's 40 feet or more in height. So I want to reiterate, this is a spec building, and I want it on the record that this and many others are spec buildings. So we have no idea, with all of these expensive professionals here, we actually have no idea, none whatsoever, as to who's coming into these buildings, and therefore we have no idea what the size of the trucks are. From my perspective, you can have 2 attached containers coming in on a tractor trailer. You really do not have any idea. And I'm pleading with the planning board on this. None of these answers are should have, I think, I believe, but they are not solid answers. They have no answers for you. The traffic study is not an answer. He's comparing single vehicles, personal vehicles, to 18-wheelers. How can you do that? And to say that it's only going to be 40 trucks, how do you know? You don't. All he's using is throwing statistics down and saying this is what's going to happen. As far as stormwater is concerned, if anybody remembers Ida, we had flooding on Canal Road. And that created a massive, massive destructive time for all of us in that neighborhood. So I ask, with regards to impervious land, why is it that we are not, and I applaud you, Mr. Commissioner, but we didn't get an answer to that. I'm asking why we're not holding them to the restrictions that the planning board created in the first place. What's the problem here? They're asking for a variance, you say no. We had restrictions. There are reasons why you created these restrictions. So I'm asking again, the only reason is money. They want the maximum building, and I get it. But they're extending it beyond the maximum building. They're asking for variances with regards to the trucking bays. I don't care if it's 7 feet or 70,000 feet. You have an ordinance, you have restrictions, you have rules, and you're violating your own rules for the sake of money. So I'm asking the question here, why is it that they cannot have their bays at 140, whatever it is, that's the rule? There's no reason. Hello?
Well, no, they testified to that.
No, they did not,
Yes, they
sir.
did. No, they actually
not.
did. They said they didn't need the full amount of space.
How do you know? It's a spec warehouse.
But that's no basis to decline anything. We have spec buildings throughout the township. Sometimes they're warehouses, sometimes they're office buildings, sometimes they're hotels. I mean, you can't deny anything just because it's spec.
No, you can deny it because they don't have data. They don't have the answers.
Yes, they do.
No, they don't.
They do. And actually, you were wrong about what they compared cars to trucks. They were very clear in that, yes, there would be a lot of trip reduction, but they also said that there would be an increase because this is now a truck use and not a office use. So they made that very clear.
No, I beg to differ, Chairman.
Okay, well, you can go back and look at the testimony. Can you please be considerate to the people behind you?
I'd like to continue because there are a number of issues here. The trucks that he testified that would be coming is approximately 40 during peak hours?
No, about 5 during peak hours.
5 during peak hours?
That's correct.
How do you know? If it's Amazon that's coming into that building, you're going to have more than 5 trucks
Excuse me.
in the
Now,
morning.
We did set it for 2 minutes. If you have any more questions, please ask the questions. Otherwise, we're going to move to the next member of the public.
Do you want our traffic consultant to answer that question, Counselor, before?
No, because I'm satisfied with the testimony. You do it based on the trip generation manual, and that's accepted testimony. I'm fine with that.
How do you? Sorry too, but I can't let another thing pass when you ask about it. The variance for the depth of the truck loading docks is a judgment call by the board. We may rather see the 7-foot variance, because of the impervious coverage it reduces, which you just complained about being too high. So in our view, we may decide we would rather reduce the impervious coverage if their testimony shows they don't need the 7 feet.
Mr. Thomas.
The second thing, it's our obligation as board members, because it says variance, we don't just say reject. We have an obligation to see if the variances can be mitigated so that the application can work for everyone. We're not abdicating our legal duty, and we're sure as hell not doing it for money.
Mr. Thomas.
Oh, okay, you can go in 10 minutes, all right.
You can reduce the size of the building, and then you would have the impervious situation mitigated.
Okay.
You can reduce the size of the building and increase the size of the loading dock.
I gavelled you.
made your
Now,
point.
please sit down, take the next one, 2 minutes.
The only thing I want to say is I respect this board. I would like this board to consider keeping the variances away.
Okay, we've
Stop
heard
the
this.
variances.
We've heard this, please. Next, please, 2 minutes. And this time I'm going to be real firm about you, because I gave you 10.
Raise your hands. Do you swear?
I won't make that mistake again.
Will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth. Thank you.
I do. I just want to pick up on the traffic analysis. Joe Huffman, 5 Congress Court. The traffic analysis. These are spec buildings. We've already said that. How do we know? We don't know the tenant. So how do we know the number of trips that this tenant will make day and night? He was very specific, 5 to 7. How do we know?
So the data that we use is published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and it's collected nationwide for warehouse buildings such as what's being proposed here. So we utilize the aggregate data that's collected throughout the country to project the traffic for a typical warehouse such as proposed here.
Typical warehouse.
That's correct.
Can you raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Your name?
Jan Brandt, 22 Bryant Court. So in your impact report about the, sorry, thank you. Thank you. So in the report, you said that there was no residential component in this app. We said the proposed development will have no ill effect on the health, safety, or well-being of the community. It will provide valuable warehousing space to generate local commerce. So there was a gentleman here that definitely it's going to be affecting them, and I guess you all didn't know about that when you wrote that report, so it's just ironic that you had that. I also, I want to address the noise issue. And last night at 2 a.m. I woke up because I have a warehouse very close by, and what this gentleman is talking about, noise is a real thing. There were, it sounded like 5 trucks. I could see their lights coming through the trees and whatnot. And you all put in your report here that the noise is going to be the same level. You don't know if you don't know if you're going to have trucks at night. Do you know whether or not you're going to have trucks at night?
The facility probably will be a 24/7 operation.
Right, so I really feel sorry for this gentleman here, because I know last night the trucks that I was hearing were probably 1,000 feet away from me, but he's absolutely right. There's a certain hum that goes on, and it's very annoying. It's actually something that creates a nuisance on the property because it's constant. It's not just noise pollution, it's a nuisance. He's not going to be able to enjoy his property anymore. Have you all considered that at all?
We have considered what the township ordinances and what the state regulations require, and we will abide by those. Quite frankly, and I think Mr. Thomas, or it wasn't Mr. Orsini, said if that gentleman had a complaint, he should talk to the township. Quite frankly, he should come and talk to the owner of the property. And the owner of the property, I can guarantee you, if there is a concern, and if that concern is legitimate, and we create noise that's violative of any of the regulations, we'll take care of it. The owner is not going to be, is somebody who owns these warehouses. They don't sell them. They are part of the community, and if there are issues that need to be dealt with, we will deal with them. But again, the situation is that we are held to certain standards. We intend to be held to those standards, but you can't ask us to go above and beyond those standards until we know that there is a real problem. And if there's a problem, we'll deal with it.
So, and I just want to read, this is the Chapter 12 land development.
You are at 2 minutes.
But I didn't finish. I mean, others had.
Okay. Last comment.
I have one more after this, and they're brief. I mean, I have them planned out. And this is according to the business and industry, that the standards are intended to require maximum attention to proper site design, including the location of structures and parking areas, proper ingress, egress, architectural design, stormwater management, landscaping, and the need to ensure visual harmony and the avoidance, this is before you build it, and the avoidance of nuisances upon adjacent residential areas. Do you all really think that somebody needs to wait till after you build the warehouse because you think that your warehouse is not going to cause any noise? You're saying it's going to be open 24 hours. A man lives 300 feet away, and this ordinance says that you have to avoid any nuisances in residential areas.
And nuisances is a very general term. We are required to abide by statutes, and it's our obligation to do that. And with respect to every one of those other standards, we testified and we've addressed those. We've addressed landscaping, we've addressed ingress and egress, we addressed the visual impact. We indicated that we have screening around the property. So we take the ordinance very seriously, and we have addressed every one of those issues through the testimony of our witnesses, both the engineer, the architect, and our traffic consultant.
Okay, and what I was reading from is straight from the ordinance, that it needs to avoid any nuisances upon adjacent residential areas. So I was reading that from the ordinances. Yes. Okay, I just was making sure. Last, wanted to address about the traffic. And someone mentioned, our community here, it's all senior citizens, and there's probably 2 things you want to avoid are trucks and senior citizens who are driving. And we're putting them all together. But anyway, so the the book that you quote from, the ISTE, right? What's the
ITE.
ITE, sorry, ITE. I was reading up on that, and actually the ITE, because warehouses are relatively new, the information that they have on warehouses and trucking really, they don't, if you reach out to experts, they might say that it's really not good information when it comes down to that. Am I correct?
No, I completely disagree with that. We're on the 11th edition of the Trip Generation Manual. Every year they collect additional data, and about every 2 to 3 years they come out with another manual, constantly updating. There are different types of warehouses that are coming out, and every time that happens, they rely on traffic engineers such as myself to collect data and to send it to them to collate into their manuals. However, Land Use Code 150, typical warehousing like this, has been around for years and has been studied for years. So I feel that the data that's within this land use code is exceptionally good to base my opinion off of.
Okay, thank you. And now, the thing is, when you do these traffic studies, the impact studies, you're doing it just on your warehouse. Do you think that it would be more accurate when you do traffic impact studies that you take into consideration all the warehouses that are around? Because if your warehouse is, there's going to be 45 trips of trucks per 8 hours, right? I think that was what you quoted.
So there's 52 peak hour trips during the morning.
Okay, so 52 peak hour
trips. Not trucks, trips completely,
trips,
because you're
okay.
talking about passenger cars. There are going to be 7 trucks in the morning and 8 truck trips in the evening during the commuting hours.
And how many warehouses are in your vicinity? Do you know the number?
I don't know the number off the top of my head. I know there have been approvals. I know there's others under construction.
Right. So is it ever taken into consideration, because it's not just going to be you guys, doing the traffic on that day. It's going to be all these warehouses. And I actually had reached out to Vince to find out how many warehouses there are. And from 2018, Mr. Healy, he keeps a very good record of all the warehouses, but there's really no statistics, is what I was told, on warehouses before that. So, I mean, it really worries me. And you're putting a lot of seniors in, they don't have as quick reflexes. Their hearing isn't as good because they have to listen to the trucks, but it's really putting a lot of us at risk. Do you guys realize that?
I don't agree with that statement. I think that when we design driveways, when we design intersections, when we design the facilities, we're taking into account the amount of traffic being generated, we're taking into account the sight lines and sight distance that you have for safe ingress and egress, and you're taking a look at the infrastructure that's already present to accommodate these vehicles. As I said, they're traveling north to Weston Canal to Route 287 primarily, and they'll be able to utilize the existing roadway infrastructure that's there.
Okay, I appreciate.
We need to move on to the next member of the public,
But one thing I
please.
want to put on record is that the trucks will go other places. Today, at my house on Metlers, trucks aren't supposed to be going down there. I counted 25 trucks going down Metlers. And trucks are always idling too. So I know you all have quoted and said that trucks aren't going to idle and trucks aren't going to go down the wrong roads, but that's in fact false. And we have proof of that, I have pictures of that, and that happens all the time. So even though you think that the trucks are going to take a certain route, they're not. So you're going according to the book, but everything doesn't happen according to the book. So anyway, but thank you for your information. Thank you, everybody.
Have to swear in?
Yes. Do you swear the testimony about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Your name, please?
My name's Terry Thorson. I live at 18 Labed Drive in Somerset. And I actually have questions. The first one is for the engineer. You said that the distance between the two buildings was going to be extended to 200 feet. Does that include the 140-foot extension of the?
Yeah, so it'll be a 60-foot loading dock area for the truck to sit in the loading dock area. Then it's 80 feet of access area to get to the loading dock. And then the other side is another 60 feet for the other buildings loading dock. So it's 200 feet total,
Okay.
correct.
Was that taken into consideration when you said it would be 70% impermeable surface, or is this going to increase the impermeable surface?
Yeah, we're going to modify the edges to it doesn't increase the impervious coverage. It's going to be exactly what it is.
Okay, my second question was, I was going to ask what kind of trees, but I did hear evergreen trees. How tall is the building going to be?
At the tallest point, 42 feet.
Okay, I had 25 arborvitae put on my property to try screen stuff. I got the biggest ones I could find, and they were 10 feet tall. They do grow a foot a year, but that means it's going to take you, 30 years to get to the top of the building and screen the noise from the fans that are up there?
I can't comment on the species of tree or the
Well, I
grade.
don't.
Well, I mean, I picked the fastest growing one.
I
gave
don't
you
think the
benefit.
purpose of the screening is to screen the mechanical equipment on the roof. It's to screen the building and
They said
and
it
the
would.
traffic.
They said it would
but
cut it down.
I don't think it's
As far as the rooftop units, they're screened in the sense that they're far enough back from the building edge that if you're standing on ground level, they wouldn't be seen at that point. They're on a visual screen. The visual screen's not needed for those units. They're out of sight on top of the building.
I've got another question. I like the idea of the sidewalk. I like walking. I like biking. I heard them talk about a bike rack there. You're only going to have 4 charging stations? Are you looking into the future? If you're looking to the future, you're going to have more charging stations for vehicles.
Based upon the current state statute, we're following what's required to install for EV.
Right now.
That's correct.
You're not looking into the
Which are the
future.
standards that we're required to follow?
So you're doing the minimum standards?
We are meeting the standards that we are
Okay,
required
the
to follow.
minimum amount that you are required to do. Okay. A question, solar ready. The question is, if the tenant wants to put a solar array on the building, is that for the electrical use of that building, or is it going to be for a community solar that's been trying to get people from the town to sign up? Because I attended the environmental meeting when the representative from Community Solar said that their solar panels would be put on the top of warehouses.
It could be for the tenant, and if there is a desire for community solar, obviously, if the owner is approached, we can have that discussion. The buildings would be solar capable.
It just seems to me that the proliferation of warehouses is kind of related to the idea that we could put solar panels on the top and reduce the electricity charges for the people, not the delivery charges. The delivery charges from PSE&G are going to be exactly the same. Another one, I'd like to know, I know with all these applications, there is a traffic study, an environmental study, stormwater study. Who picks the group that does those studies? The developer or the planning board?
I mean, I'll respond to it just generally. I mean, it's the applicant. It's the applicant's professionals. That's their application, so they put the team together to present their application to this board.
No offense, but it seems that they would have a vested interest in picking a group that would favor
That
their
is true,
position.
but obviously the township and the board have their own professionals that review all of that information that's submitted, and they generate reports. As you've heard this evening, they make recommendations, and many times the board and the applicant, agree to those recommendations. So it cuts both ways.
Yeah, the traffic study, when they were saying going on Western Canal Road, you saw the pictures of Western Canal Road during Ida, where the cars were underwater. There's no way a truck could get through there, which means they're going to have to go the other way. So you're not going to have the traffic going only in one direction. And I know I've seen pictures of trucks trying to negotiate that turn, even when it's dry out. And I don't live anywhere near that. I live right over here in the Levitt development. But another question. For, prospective tenants, did anybody ever try to get on 287 at rush hour? You know how you backed up? Are companies going to be willing to have their trucks backed up trying to get onto 287? You may not be able to rent it.
I think the traffic consultant indicated that the trucks that are generated, truck traffic during rush hour is minimal. Most truck drivers, and this board has heard this testimony in many applications, truck drivers don't leave a facility to sit in traffic and burn fuel if they know that the roadways are backed up. That's why they leave at off hours.
Like in the night?
Could be in the night, could be in the middle of the day.
Okay, I have one more question. Mr. Lanford, why is your name on all the applications I read for warehouses in this town and on none of the applications I saw for individual people?
I beg to differ with you. I've handled...
It's what I've read. I mean, just what I've read. I haven't read all of them, obviously, because, things have gone on before.
I've handled numerous applications for individual property owners for additions to their houses. I've handled minor subdivision applications for individual property owners.
But every warehouse application that's on the website right now has your name on it as the contact person.
I don't know if that's accurate or not.
It is.
Okay, I know I've handled a few of them.
But it's not relevant, so let's move on.
Okay, well, okay, and I had one more thing, and I can't remember what it was. Oh, yes, I'm glad it's being recorded because you said you would fix the problems.
Exactly.
You want to raise your hand?
Yes.
Do you swear any testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
And your name, please?
Alex Strauss, 285 Hazlitt Way, Somerset. And, I can snap this in. Okay. It seems to me that perhaps Link Logistics is trying to have lunch before it finishes breakfast. Because what's going on in 1 Wiley Drive, Mr. Lanford, what's going on there, you know, right? Under construction right now. And the application, 355,790 square feet.
Not relevant to this one.
It's relevant because...
it's not. I won't allow it. I won't allow it.
Okay, all right, you won't allow it, fine. What are you going to do if this warehouse remains vacant? What's going to happen then? If it's built on spec by a billionaire developer, Link Logistics, Blackstone, Stephen Schwartzman, they can mow down this building, the municipal building, and put up a warehouse. They have deep pockets. Okay, what are you going to do if it's vacant?
If it remains vacant, they'll address that issue when the time comes. But it's their intention to have at least, they're in the business, they're professionals, they understand the market, and they feel confident that the buildings that they are constructing in this municipality, in this state, in this country will be leased.
That's also irrelevant. We're not market economists. We can't deny or approve things based on whether we think they'll be occupied or not. We can't.
Okay, well, I guess we'll take it to the mayor and the council then.
And they can't either, but go ahead.
Really?
Nope.
Well, we need a moratorium, I think. Okay.
Well, good luck with that.
Whoa, okay. The fix is in, I guess.
Not legal. Moratoriums are not legal.
Mansfield Township, Burlington County.
Doesn't mean it's legal.
Mansfield
Doesn't mean it's legal.
Okay.
Anyway, we're not
All
going to
right.
get into that.
Okay, now, moving on.
Please.
287 South. I've noticed that the ramp is rather sharp. It wasn't, I don't know if it was really built for trucks when you come off the ramp 287 South.
Again, not relevant to this application.
All right, well, okay. Fine.
Find something else.
Okay, find something
Next.
else.
Next.
Okay. The present building, 200 Cottontail, why are our aesthetics going down? They're decreasing. The office building looks like they have medium-sized trees scattered around the parking lot. They have larger trees in a courtyard, okay, in addition to trees in front. And our aesthetics are declining. They're on the decline. I agree with Representative Anderson about the impervious coverage. Why should we give it away? Why give it away? These were regulations. Don't give it away, okay? Other question I have is about the truck size. What are we going on as far as truck length for this particular development?
It's a great question. So the WB67, right, is an AASHTO design vehicle, but it represents the largest tractor trailers that are allowed on the roads, right? It's a 53-foot trailer with an overall length of 73 and a half feet.
73 and a half feet. So you're proposing a length of the loading dock of how long again?
So we're 200 feet from dock face to dock face, and the reason we do it that way, right, is 130 feet between the face of the dock and the far side of the curb line, if there wasn't another loading dock, is what's necessary for the 67s to be able to back up, right? So what we're providing is that width on both sides. So if there is a tractor trailer with a tractor still attached on building A, the loading docks on building B will still be able to function within that 130 feet.
Well, shouldn't the length be, you said 73 feet, shouldn't the length be at least 146 feet, 147, as stated by Franklin Township?
No, honestly, it's not necessary for the turning maneuvers of these type of trucks.
Okay. Because I went on for some experts online, and for instance, there's something called BlueGiant.com, and they say it should be...
I'm going to object to...
Okay. Why? Because it's supposed to be times 2 plus 5 or 10 feet. That's what they're saying it should be, okay, for safety.
And we've testified as to the reason why we feel the deviation is appropriate.
Okay, let's just throw out okay, why don't we just forget about, they can do whatever they want, I guess. I mean, more or less, it seems. That's all. Yeah, that's it. And again, aesthetics, they're going down, they're declining now with these warehouses. So, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, move to close the public portion.
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, board, being mindful that we have another applicant waiting, Peter, I'll turn it over to you for any final comments.
Yeah, I'll try to be brief, Mr. Chairman. This application was submitted in May of this year. When it was submitted, as is customary, the application contained a great deal of information concerning, as some of the people mentioned, traffic, stormwater management, environmental. It included landscaping, lighting, everything that your ordinance requires. The application was reviewed in depth by your township planner, your township engineer, the police department, the fire department, the health department, the environmental commission. So this application was fully vetted by township staff, and comments were generated in conjunction with this application. As a result of those comments, we've agreed to address them. We've had conversations with staff, which will make the application even better. We've agreed to provide additional landscaping. Again, with respect to the issue of the sidewalk, we made a value decision that we think it is more appropriate to preserve the trees and the berm that's there rather than to put a sidewalk in. But if the township wants a sidewalk, we're not, as people intimate, thinking about money. We'll do whatever is necessary to make that situation what it should be. And if the township feels that a sidewalk is not necessary, we're paying into a fund. So it's not that we're looking to get away with something. Again, with respect to the comments concerning noise, we are held to certain standards. We will have to adhere to those standards. But to sit here and say that we have to do A, B, C, and D because things may happen or could possibly happen, I don't think is realistic, and I don't think the board can do that. There is a long-term commitment of this applicant to the community. The standards that the state of New Jersey imposes on people who operate these types of facilities are fairly stringent, and they're getting more stringent every year. It's our job to comply with those standards. With respect to the variances, if this was a virgin site and not developed, I can see the argument of why are you going to 60 now down to 69%. The site is already developed at 71%. It has existed like that for many years. The stormwater management system, as testified to by our professional, has worked for all those years. We're making it a better situation. We're reducing the impervious. We're also taking the runoff from the buildings and not from the parking lots, which is also a benefit. So I think the variance is justified. With respect to the turning radius and the truck court, this board has heard this testimony on numerous occasions, and it runs counter to the arguments of the residents. We can make it 143 feet. It's going to add more impervious. There's no need to do it. The testimony has been presented over and over again by numerous traffic consultants that the truck court works. Finally, the fact that it's a spec building, totally irrelevant. An applicant owns a piece of property, has the right to develop it, has the right to build
whatever he feels is appropriate on the building, provided that the board feels that we present the proofs that are required. Shopping centers are built all the time without tenants. Medical office buildings are built without tenants. General office buildings are built without tenants. There is no requirement that we have to have a user. If the building remains empty, that's our problem. It's not the board's problem. It's not the township's problem. We have the legal right to build that warehouse on that site. I would respectfully request that the board grant the 2 variances and site plan approval, and I thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve the 2 variances with the 69.9%, I believe, impervious coverage, the 140-foot rather than 130-foot loading dock.
140.
Yeah, 140, right, because it was 130 originally, and they changed it. Also banking, the 25 parking spaces, additional screening and trees to the maximum possible, the directional signage and no idling signs, bike storage, solar ready they have, the EV charging stations you have, and compliance with all of the staff reports and outside agency reports. Oh, and the sidewalk, that we will check with our engineer, and if so, the applicant is encouraged to put in the sidewalk, which they have agreed to. So that's my motion.
Motion? Second.
Councilman Abarson?
No.
Carl Hauck?
Yes.
Tahir Rafiq?
Yes.
Theodore Chase?
Yes.
Mustafa Manzre?
Yes.
Charles Brown?
This was a tough one, but I don't think the applicant has done enough to be granted a variance, so I'm going to vote no.
Robert Thomas?
I just want to remind everybody, this is a farming permitted use in its proper zone. Vote yes.
Sammy Shaban?
I'd agree with Charles that this was a tough one, but I'll also vote no.
Chairman Orsini?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
You have the next one?
I have the next one. I don't know if you're going to want to start it. I've got 4 witnesses on that one.
What are they? What are you for?
Same thing.
That was only 3. I don't know. They're all here, you're all here.
I just need a 5-minute break, whatever you want to do. But again, I don't think we're going to finish this evening, but my guess is if we get through 1 witness, we're lucky, but whatever you want to do, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right, well, if you don't think we're going to finish, then would you give us an extension to what's the next, the deadline's not till 9:30, so we have another meeting.
The next available meeting is January 18th, 2023.
What? What do you mean?
We're busy.
Well, he only thinks he's going to get through 1 witness, then there's no point in starting.
Let me do this. Why don't we carry this for 2 weeks? I have an application in 2 weeks that may not be ready and may not be able to go. So if that one doesn't go, then we can move this other one in 2 weeks.
No further notification necessary.
I think you're good. If you need an extension, I'll give you an extension until the end of
No,
October.
we're good till 9:30, so
Yeah.
if we're going to do, what, 9, whatever it is, yeah.
9:21. I think, I will know probably after tomorrow whether we'll be ready on the other one.
If you're not confident you can get through more than one witness, then that's, yeah, I just want to start, I want to get it done.
Christine fully,
Okay, so the matter of BH 31 Schoolhouse, docket number PLN 22-00010 will be carried until September 21st. The meeting will be here in the council chambers at 7:30 PM with no notice needed.
Yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Clarkin.
Sorry about that. Okay, thank you, Peter. We'll see you on the 21st then for that one.
You come at this hour?
I guess so.
Mark, we have anything else, or we can motion to adjourn? All right, motion to adjourn? Can I get a second? Second. All in favor? Aye. All right.